In a small, peaceful village, two women lived next door to each other. One of them was Sarah, a strong woman who spent her days working on the land. She grew vegetables and sold them in the market. She was busy, always moving from one task to another, her skin tan and glowing under the sun. Sarah had a warm smile and an easy laugh, but she was always focused on her work. Her neighbor Bella was different. Bella was a fisherwoman. Every morning, she would go to the river with her boat, casting her net into the water. Her long, dark hair would shimmer in the sunlight, and her eyes sparkled with energy. She worked hard, bringing in fish and selling them in the market. Bella had a quiet strength about her. She was not as busy as Sarah, but she had her own set of challenges. She was known for her beauty and charm, and her presence made the village feel warmer. Between their two homes stood the well. It was an old stone well that the villagers had used for years. The water was clean and fresh, and it was the only well that served everyone. Both Sarah and Bella needed water for their daily work. Sarah needed water for her crops, and Bella needed it to clean the fish she caught. One day, Sarah went to Bella's house. She stood in front of Bella's door, waiting. When Bella opened the door, Sarah smiled. "Bella, I have an idea," Sarah said. "We both need water, but it's easy to waste it. I was thinking that maybe we could take turns using the well." Bella looked thoughtful for a moment. She knew Sarah worked hard and that she needed the water for her crops, but Bella also depended on it for her fish. She agreed. "That sounds good," Bella said. "We can take turns. You can use it on one day, and I will use it the next." The two women agreed on the plan, and from that day on, everything worked perfectly. They shared the well without trouble, each knowing what the other needed. It was a simple arrangement, but it worked. They became good friends, often chatting at the well as they drew water. It was a peaceful time. Weeks passed, and then something unexpected happened. One morning, Sarah received a letter. It was from a faraway relative. Her uncle had passed away. The letter said that he had left her a large piece of land. Sarah was shocked at first, but soon she was filled with excitement. Sarah now had a huge piece of land to plant even more vegetables. She could sell more at the market, and she dreamed of becoming a successful farmer. She was overjoyed, but knew the work ahead of her would be difficult. With the land came more responsibility. She started planting new crops, making sure they were healthy and ready for the market. But as her land grew, so did her need for water. Sarah found herself at the well more often. Her vegetables were thirsty, and she needed water to keep them growing. At first, it wasn't a problem. She still kept to the schedule they had made, But soon, as her crops grew bigger and bigger, she began to use the well more and more. She would go to the well even on days when it wasn't her turn. Bella began to notice. One morning, Bella walked to the well, expecting to use it for her fish. But when she arrived, she saw Sarah already there, taking water for her crops. "Sarah, it's my day to use the well," Bella said, her voice calm but firm. Sarah looked up from her work, sweat dripping down her face. "I'm sorry, Bella, but I need more water for my crops. I can't wait." Bella felt a rush of frustration. "We agreed to take turns. This isn't fair." "I know," Sarah said, but she didn't seem bothered. "I just need the water now." Bella's heart sank. She had tried to be patient, but this was too much. She was starting to feel ignored, and it upset her deeply. But rather than argue, she turned and walked away. She didn't want to fight, but she couldn't just let Sarah continue to take all the water. As the days went by, Sarah continued to take more and more water. Bella's anger grew, but she didn't know how to stop it. Every time she needed water for her fish, Sarah was there. It was as if Sarah had forgotten about their agreement. It wasn't just about the water. It was about respect. Bella felt as though Sarah was ignoring her needs. One morning, Bella went to Sarah's house. Sarah was working in her garden, planting seeds. Bella walked up to her, trying to keep her calm. "Sarah," she began, "I need to talk to you. You've been using the well every day, even on my days. You said we would share it." Sarah stopped what she was doing and wiped the sweat from her brow. She looked up at Bella, but her face remained serious. "I know, but I need the water for my crops. My farm is bigger now, and I can't wait." Bella's heart was heavy with frustration. "But my work is important too. I need the well to clean my fish, to wash my hands. We made a deal." Sarah sighed, clearly not understanding Bella's frustration. "I'm sorry, but I really need the water." Bella stood there for a moment, feeling defeated. She wanted to be understanding, but this was too much. She turned and walked away, feeling like she had been brushed aside. This was no longer just about water. It was about Sarah's attitude. Bella could no longer ignore the problem. She needed help. So, she went to the village elder, an old man who was known for his wisdom and fairness. He had helped settle many disputes in the village, and Bella hoped he could help with hers. The elder listened carefully as Bella explained the situation. Then, Sarah was called to the elder's home to explain her side of the story. The elder, tired of hearing the same things over and over, finally spoke. "Sarah, you have more land now, and that means you need more water. But the well was meant to be shared. If you need more, you should dig your own well. Sarah didn't like the elder's decision. She was upset, but agreed. It would be a lot of work, but she knew she had no other choice. For the next few days, Sarah worked hard to dig a new well. Her hands were sore, and she was exhausted from the effort. But she finished the job. She was proud of her work, even though it was difficult. She finally had a new well, and she thought it would solve all her problems. But one night, a terrible storm came through the village. The wind howled, and the rain fell in torrents. When Sarah woke the next morning, she rushed to her well, only to find that it had flooded. The heavy rain had washed away all the earth around the well, leaving it completely useless. Sarah was devastated. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't use her new well, and she had no choice but to go back to the shared well. When Bella saw her there, using the well again, she was furious. "You promised. You said you wouldn't use the well again." Sarah was speechless. She had no answer. She needed the water, but she could see the hurt in Bella's eyes, and she knew she had broken her promise. The argument between Sarah and Bella grew worse. Both of them felt wronged. Bella went to the elder again, hoping he would find a solution. This time, the elder suggested they build a wall in the middle of the well. This way, each woman could use her side of the well. At first, both women agreed, but when the wall was built, the well became much harder to use. Water often spilled over the edges, and neither of them could get the water they needed quickly. It was a waste, and neither of them was happy with the result. The villagers noticed the problem. They saw the tension between the two women, and they knew the solution was simple. Sarah and Bella needed to learn to work together. The villagers called a meeting. They talked about how the well was being wasted, and how the fighting between Sarah and Bella was hurting the whole village. Finally, they came up with a plan. "Sarah can help Bella with her fishing," one villager suggested. "Bella can allow Sarah to use more water during harvest time." Everyone agreed that this would be a fair solution. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than what was happening now. Sarah and Bella met at the well. They apologized to each other. They realized they had both been wrong. They agreed to the new plan. From that day on, Sarah and Bella worked together. They shared the well, and they helped each other. Their friendship grew stronger, and the village became a better place for everyone. After the villagers' meeting, Sarah and Bella agreed to make things work. It wasn't easy at first. Both women had their own ways of doing things, and old habits were hard to break. But they were determined to find a solution. The next morning, as the sun rose over the village, Sarah walked to the river where Bella was preparing her fishing nets. The air was cool, and the river sparkled in the early light. Sarah approached Bella with a hesitant smile. "Bella," Sarah began, "I know we've had our disagreements, but I want to make things right. I'm willing to help you with the fishing chores. I know it's hard work." Bella looked up from her nets. Her dark eyes studied Sarah, but she could see the sincerity in her face. She hadn't expected Sarah to offer her help so quickly, but it made her feel better. "I appreciate that," Bella said, nodding. "I've always done the fishing on my own, but maybe it's time to accept help. If you want to help me, I'd be happy for it." Sarah grinned, her confidence growing. "Good. I'll start by cleaning the fish and getting the boat ready for the next trip. I've learned a few things from watching you." Bella laughed. "I'm sure you'll do just fine." The two women worked together that morning, side by side. Sarah helped clean the fish, and Bella prepared the boat. There was something peaceful about their work, something that made their bond stronger. They shared stories about their past and their dreams for the future. The tension that had once existed between them slowly faded away. In the afternoon, when it was time to use the well, Sarah let Bella take her turn. Sarah could see the relief in Bella's eyes. She knew Bella needed the water just as much as she did. "I'll be quick," Sarah said, with a friendly wink. "Go ahead and take your time." Bella smiled. "Thanks, Sarah. I'll make sure to leave enough for you." By the end of the day, the two women had managed to find a rhythm. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than it had been before. They were no longer fighting over the water. They were sharing it, working together, and becoming stronger friends in the process. As the weeks passed, Sarah's farm continued to grow. The vegetables she had planted flourished, and the harvest season was just around the corner. This time, Sarah was determined to be more thoughtful about the water she used, especially during the busy harvest season. She knew that Bella's fish business would be just as important during this time, and she didn't want to disrupt the balance they had built. One afternoon, as Sarah was working in her field, she noticed that the sun was starting to set. She wiped the sweat from her brow and decided it was time to check in with Bella. When Sarah arrived at Bella's house, she saw Bella sitting outside, resting after a long day of fishing. Her hair was slightly wet from the river, and her eyes looked tired, but she smiled when she saw Sarah. "Are you busy?" Sarah asked. Bella shook her head. "No, I've finished most of my work for today." Sarah sat down next to her. "I've been thinking about harvest time. I know we'll both need a lot of water. I want to make sure we don't run into any problems." Bella looked at Sarah, appreciating her concern. I've been thinking about that too. We both need the water, but we can work it out. I can give you a little extra water during harvest time, and you can help me if I need it. Sarah smiled. That sounds fair. Thank you, Bella. You've been more patient with me than I deserve. Bella laughed softly. You're a good friend, Sarah. We're both learning. The two women made plans for the harvest, agreeing that they would keep working together. It was clear that their relationship had changed for the better. The once silent tension between them had dissolved into understanding and mutual respect. But just as the harvest season began, another challenge appeared. One evening, the weather turned unusually cold. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and the wind began to pick up. Bella looked toward the horizon, her face drawn with concern. She had seen storms before, but this one felt different. Sarah, who had been working late in her field, hurried to her house to bring in her tools. She saw Bella standing by the well, her eyes scanning the sky. Bella, do you think the storm will hit here? Sarah asked, her voice tinged with worry. I don't know, Bella replied. It looks bad. We should take cover. If the storm is strong, it might cause trouble for us. The wind began to pick up speed, howling through the trees as the first drops of rain fell. The storm arrived faster than anyone expected. The rain poured down in sheets, and the wind whipped through the village. Both women hurried to secure their homes, hoping the storm would pass quickly. The next morning, when the storm finally cleared, Sarah woke up to find that her field had been flooded. The water from the storm had soaked into the soil, and some of her crops were ruined. But worse yet, her new well had been destroyed. The heavy rain had washed away the earth around it, leaving it unusable. Sarah stood in the middle of her flooded field, feeling defeated. She didn't know what to do. Her hard work had been undone by the storm, and now she had no choice but to return to the shared well. Bella saw Sarah standing alone in her field, her hands on her hips. She walked over to her, concern in her eyes. Sarah, what happened? Sarah turned to face her. The storm destroyed my well. I don't know what to do. I was depending on that well. Bella placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, her voice gentle. You're not alone, Sarah. You can use the well as long as you need to. We'll work through this together. Sarah's eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Bella. I don't deserve your kindness. Bella smiled. We're friends, Sarah. That's what friends do. The next few weeks were tough. Sarah continued to work hard on her farm, but the storm had caused significant damage. Still, she didn't give up. She knew that things would get better. She had her crops, her well, and most importantly, her friendship with Bella. One day, as Sarah and Bella were walking to the well together, they both stopped and looked at the water. The sun was setting, casting a golden light over the landscape. "Sarah, I've been thinking," Bella said, her voice thoughtful. "We've come a long way. You've worked hard to fix everything. I'm proud of you." Sarah smiled. "We've both worked hard. I couldn't have done it without you." Bella looked at Sarah, her eyes warm. "We make a great team." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of their journey together. "Yes, we do." The two women stood by the well, knowing that the road ahead would still have challenges. But they were no longer worried. They had each other, and that was all that mattered. From that day on, Sarah and Bella continued to share the well and their work. They helped each other when times were tough, celebrated when things went well, and always found time to laugh together. And as the village flourished, so did their friendship. The once quiet tension between them had turned into a bond that made them both stronger, proving that when people work together, they can overcome any challenge.